Hello and welcome to this episode of Ways to Change Your Workplace, where I am speaking with the wonderful Geoff Stewart. Geoff, hello and welcome to this episode. How are you?
Hello, Prina. Good to be here.
It is really good to have you here today, Geoff. Now, for people who don't know you, I want to do a little bit of an introduction, if I may.
Sure.
So, Geoff Stewart joined the Western Australian Police Force 45 years ago and has enjoyed a very diverse career with roles in metropolitan and regional areas, including traffic, general duties, forensics, ballistics, weapons and tactics training, counter-terrorism, close personal protection, marine and land search and rescue, officer in charge at remote regional or metropolitan stations, which range from 200 personnel to over 200 and senior district management roles. So Geoff has been around in the WA Police Force, the Western Australian Police Force, and beyond actually. Geoff was also a visiting fellow at the Australian Institute of Police Management in New South Wales, and that was in 2016. And Geoff delivered executive leadership programs to multi-agency and jurisdictional organizations in Australia and Southeast Asia. Geoff has been sharing his knowledge for years. Geoff is passionate about the welfare of the police family. Geoff has been a member of the board of the WA Police Legacy since 2008. And that's an organization that supports the partners and families of fallen police officers. Geoff is a proud husband to Helen, and he has 4 kids, and Geoff passionately follows the West Coast Eagles. That's his team. Geoff is currently the District Superintendent of the Southwest District of Western Australia. Geoff, you have many an accolade, and I don't think we've covered enough here, I don't think. You are doing a lot of work at the moment in opening people's eyes to all things leadership development, culture, ways to change your workplace, and that's how we came across each other. Welcome, Geoff. You are quite the high achiever.
Well, I had to get something if it's nearly half a century of working for this mob, Prina. But yeah, look, we've spoken before. I like what we do in terms of just having these chats. It's how I learn, and I'm still learning. So I'm really happy to be here and take away something from this conversation today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you, Geoff. Now, Geoff, you do lots of things, and I don't think this introduction has done you justice whatsoever. Can I ask you, at the moment, you are the District Superintendent of the Southwest District of Western Australia, which is a huge area. But beyond that, can I ask you what you do in relation to the leadership work that you're doing and the conversations that you're having, and why you do what you do in relation to that work? What is it, and why do you do it?
Sure. Well, I guess how it evolved, Prina, was I've been in the job for a long time, and I've been mainly in the country areas. I specialised for a while in Perth, and when we had our family, I decided to move to the country, and I've been into quite remote and other areas, but there's always where there's a lot of things happening, and I guess I developed a bit of a reputation for being an operational officer, planning responses to natural disasters as well as crime and things of dealing in alcohol and violence in some communities and that. So I was really good at that. And after about 30 odd years, I got the opportunity to go to the place. I was a visiting fellow, the Australian Institute of Police Management. I went there as a participant on a program, and I'd already done 30 plus years, and I thought I knew everything. But deep down, I knew there were things about me as a leader that I wasn't really happy with. But I went there and it just opened my eyes up. It was like a kick up the bum to say, you've got some work to do. And so I went back to work, but I knew that I had to do more. And then not knowing that in 2016, I would get the opportunity to go there as a visiting fellow on staff, and thinking I was going to go there and just do that, I quickly realised I was there to learn more about myself. As a result of that, when I was over there, I started sending newsletters back to my colleagues, 20 friends in the job. I'd send them back a newsletter and say, hey, we've been talking about this. This is what I reckon. What do you think? And that grew. And after 12 months, I came back to WA Police, and I kept on doing them. And I started having face-to-face coffee meetings in the morning. Good Starts Today, where I put out a monthly newsletter. And then I'd say, I'm going to be at police headquarters, or I'm going to be at the academy, or I'm going to be at the terrace somewhere. And if anyone wants to join me for a coffee. So I started doing that. And so we grew a little community. Wow. COVID came along, and probably the best thing for the leadership strategy was I had so many people overseas and all around Australia that now were getting the newsletters that wanted to be part of the conversations, and they couldn't. COVID came along, so I went online, and now it's just gone gangbusters in terms of more reach, and now have online sessions. We have people, as I said, from all around Australia and overseas, and the one we had last month was we had people from the US, from the UK, from New Zealand, from Australia, and we just talk. And so I'm a bit selfish, though, that I do it just as much for me as everyone else.
Yep.
Because I worked out I've got things to work on, and I've been doing that. But we've just created a community where we have so many people from diverse areas, not just police. We have emergency services, business, industry, community sectors, all involved. Because the best thing I like about it is, for a long time, I had blinkers on, and everything I looked at was blue, and I just had that police lens on. And when I stopped doing that, it's just, you just learn so much. You create a diverse group of people, and there's so much diverse learnings come from that. And I just enjoy it, and it's done the world for me. It's made me a better person as much as being a better leader, I hope.
And oh, beautiful, Geoff. And that's exactly what I get from the podcast and the stuff that I'm doing. I completely relate to this. And for people who don't know, what I'm going to do is I'll put Geoff's details in the show notes. So Geoff has created quite the movement. It's a huge Geoff. You are, again, very modest. So Geoff has talks every month, I believe it is. One talk is Leadership 60, where there'll be a big philosophical leadership question that you will pose to the group, and it's all on Zoom, so the whole world is welcome. And we as a group will discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And it's a really interesting debate, very respectful. And, there's poking, there's prodding, there's agreeing, there's disagreeing. But we all walk out of these sessions with a bigger brain and more ideas and just richer as people. So that's the Leadership 60 conversations that Geoff hosts, very kindly hosts. And then the other thing that Geoff does is he hosts Leadership 30 conversations. Now that's a short and sweet insight into leaders of this world, and it's a real deep dive into why they do what they do. And I've attended a few, and I have fallen in love with the people that you have as your guests, Geoff. And it sounds like you pick people who are making a difference in the workplace. And I'm very, very honored to be a guest for you tomorrow as well. I can't wait. But in those Leadership 30 conversations, the thing that I always get is you get a deep dive into that individual. Because often, and I don't know about you, Geoff, often, with every day and things happening, we have these various hats on. But the Leadership 30 conversation that really happens, we take all of these hats off and we get to the core of the individual, I feel.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think, probably, and good to note too, the Leadership 60s, Prina, are not recorded, because you described it really, really well, where people are really honest and have some really decent, hard conversations. So it's Chatham House rules, what says in the room stays in the room. Yep. But we definitely record the Leadership 30s because there's so much learnings from that. And as we're going to find out with yours tomorrow, but that's what it's about. People, I look at sometimes on LinkedIn and places like that, and people describe themselves as a a proven leader and good at it. I'm just someone who's still learning, and that's why these, whether it be my Leadership 60s or your podcast, it's about recognizing that you'll never stop learning. You're never going to stop learning. And one of the points I make when I talk to groups about leadership, either with my organization or others, I always make the point, there's not a single person ever, including me, that doesn't want to change something about themselves as a person or as a leader. Not a single person. And that's what this is all about. Not accepting that you're the Gren Poobah of leadership, that you're the bee's knees and all that type of thing. It's we're all human, and we don't always get it right, but it's about just tweaking what we need to tweak, and you do that by learning.
Absolutely. Geoff comes from a very humble perspective, and the fact that you're a lifelong learner, and we are all works in progress. As I say, I think I'm always going to be a work in progress. I think that's the same mentality that you have as well. That is very counterintuitive to the way of the workplace, Geoff, because the higher we go in our career, we hit the apex of whatever roles that we're in, you are a specialist. Of course, you're supposed to know everything. So from the kind of work that you're doing, and I know, everybody knows institutions such as the police force, military, whatever else, those kind of institutions have a very command and control kind of culture. What you were doing is saying, well, actually, maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
That's very different to the traditional culture that you come from an organizational perspective, Geoff. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can, and you're right. Police is very much a paramilitary type organisation when I joined, okay. And it still is in pockets sometimes. And I reckon they're the people that need to do something about the way they lead. But even when we talk though about people that were leaders way back then, I love asking people about, tell me the name of the person that you thought was the best leader that you've ever had. And that'll be back in those times as well. But they don't talk about being a hard ass and that's the way it is, just do. They talk about the people who are humble, who show care. And so even back then, we recognised the best leaders were those emotionally intelligent people. And so I think that's what it's about. Brené Brown is one of my favourite people I listen to or read books about. And she talks about, it used to be about muscle leadership. Yeah. And now it's going forward, it's about heart. Yeah. For me, it's always been about heart. The best leaders we've ever followed are the ones we want to follow because we want to, not because we have to, because they had those great qualities. And but you're exactly right, though. Our organisation, like any other policing organisation, another whether it be military or emergency services, there's always a hierarchical thing. But when we deal with daunting challenges, you get people to do it, to meet the challenges, and particularly when you're going through organisational change, you got to get the hearts and minds. You got to, you won't get everyone, but how can you hook them in? Yeah. And that's just by I go on a bit about this. There's a technical term in leadership that I've got now, and it's so important. It's called GDP. It's called being a good, decent person.
Love it. Yes. Yeah. Permission to swear. When I'm delivering emotional intelligence training, we have a brilliant day. And at the end of the session, I summarize it in one sentence. Don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it is. And it's about leading with head. It's leading with your heart and leading with a backbone as well. There's 3 elements I always say. There's, there's a good mix. You need a good mix of both. Now, Geoff, you have been around, as you have said as well, 45 years, or is it over 45 years?
I think I'm getting my 45 clasp to my medal. I've just received it to be served. So, it's 45 years. I know it's hard to believe, Prina. I only look 27, so I know. So
That's it. That's it. Babyface Geoff. Now, Geoff, so how would you define the legacy that you have left or continue to leave in the area that you work in? What lasting impact do you hope to leave?
um, I think it's all about the people. That's what I just want to make sure. And like I said, Prina, I just had this change about 7 or 8 years ago. So I wasn't always. I did some people stuff, but now I make it's more important than anything to me about how we recognise and reward and acknowledge people, and but also how we create the best team culture and things like that. You should not go and work in an environment that's just crap, and it just stays crap.
No.
And so I think the legacy I want to leave is that it's not always about the leader. Sometimes I saw a thing on LinkedIn the other day where it said leaders need to understand they have the greatest influence on the people that they work with. And I said, yeah, I get that, I agree, but it's also any team member also has the greatest influence on them. And so I think my legacy is about just don't forget what's really important. It's all about people. I ask people about what business are we in, and if they're a copper, they'll say about fighting crime and keeping the community safe. If you talk to someone else, they say it's about selling the most thing. It's not. We're in the business of people. When we actually look through what we do with the lens of keeping that in mind,
Yep.
that's where we have the greatest impact and the greatest effect. That's when we get people that want to stay where they are. That's where we're not just being a leader and creating followers, we're being a leader and creating leaders. Everyone's got a part, and it doesn't matter what level of position or rank or role you have, we're all leaders, or we can be.
Yes.
Because I also make the point too that, I'm not a leader unless I undertake activities of leadership. I can have a position of authority, being the district superintendent where I am now, but unless I'm actually leading, then it counts for nothing. And you see that sometimes we have people that are so-called leaders, but they're not really doing anything. And so I just want people to understand that everyone's got a skin in the game in terms of leadership within wherever they are. It doesn't matter if you're down the bottom of the food chain or middle or whatever. If everyone actually decides to do something positive in terms of the culture within the team, then they'll be the places that you just look back on. And it's usually after we leave, we look back and say, that was by far the best time I've ever had. Best time I've ever had. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't matter what dynamic environment you work in, including police, and we deal with some bad things sometimes and things like that. We all do. But we can also have the best time because we're there for each other and the like. So for me, the legacy is about don't forget what it's all about, and don't just make it lip service.
Yeah.
Too often companies, organisations, they say, oh, it's all about the people. It's not. We have a saying about police, it's all about the blue family. And I say, don't say it unless you mean it. So what are the 1%ers that I call? What are we doing about that? The way that I interact, the way that I actually manage people, the way that I actually give permission to others to lead as well, instead of getting in there and micromanaging and things like that. So I guess that's a long answer to your question, but my legacy is about I hope people understand it's all about people.
Perfect. And we are all leaders, that I think we really need to remember that. And again, you are breaking the thinking here. I've had experience of working in government as well, Geoff. So, from a governmental perspective, the hierarchy is quite something. I'm a level this, I'm a level that. Nah, drop that language. You are a leader in whatever you do. That's why you're there. Be the best that you can. Yeah. Geoff, now you have had quite the career and many, many opportunities. No doubt you've seen the other side as well. I'm sure everything hasn't been hunky-dory all the way along. Without breaking confidence and against Chatham House rules in terms of not naming any names, can you share a specific example of a career challenge that you yourself encountered and how you got over it, how you overcame it, Geoff.
Yeah. Yeah. Without going into detail, then, as a senior officer, I suppose I would have been back then as well. Still, I was held accountable for some poor performance within my work unit, and it got to a situation where I was held account formally, and it was quite embarrassing. And it wasn't anything criminal or unlawful or whatever, but it was more administratively and whatever. But it caused undue attention to the agency, and I wasn't part of it, but I was overseeing the work unit there, and so I had to face up to some serious music and ramifications, and Prena, I thought is one of my darkest times, I'd say. And I think if my wife Helen was on here with me, she would certainly say the same thing. It affected me greatly because I was like one of those people who were seen as a high performer. If there was an issue, send Stewie there and he'll take care of it, and protests or bikies or whatever. So and it really knocked me for six, and I was embarrassed. And it was just before my father died, and I remember my old man. He actually asked me before he passed away, "What's all that?" Because it was in the paper without naming me or whatever, but you could tell that it was my area or whatever. So I was really sad that he had to see that and talk to me about that before he passed away. So what did I do about it? You know, I stopped blaming other people, because when I looked down deep inside, there were some things that I probably could have put in place or done about that, and so rather than just do the old blame, and I got phone calls from other managers saying, "Oh, that's bullshit," and sorry for swearing. That's not right. It's so the job's effed and all this sort of stuff. But you know what? Deep down inside, as a leader, I knew that I'd probably let myself down, and so I had to do something about it. I did something about it by looking for opportunities for growth, and not just resting back and being one of these negative people who blame everyone else except having a look in the mirror. So I did that, and this comes back. One of my other favourite sayings out of all that is, adversity doesn't build character; it reveals it. So it's how you get on with it. I didn't talk about it anymore. I just let my actions speak for myself, and I got back on and went over to New South Wales at the college, and I took advantage of some other opportunities, and all of a sudden I'm back on the horse and I'm getting career progression again, and I feel so much better about it. And so that was a real testing time for me. But I just made sure I didn't want to wallow in self-pity. I didn't want to blame other people. And I just had to hold the mirror up and say, yeah, you had some part in that. And there's a great question that I learned over in the college, and I still use it today with other people. What's your part in the mess?
Yeah.
And when I asked myself that question and I answered it, I had actions to come out of it, and I did those actions, and I felt so much better for doing it. Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. People see it and take notice.
Beautiful, Geoff. And it sounds like it was a really tough and dark time for you. And the fact that, you clearly wanted to make your dad proud, and I'm sure was very proud of you nonetheless. But to see that, and just before he passed away as well, one of your final conversations with him, and being a high achiever, you are focused on, achieving and giving back to the people that you're serving as well. Quite the blow. But then the way that you flip it as well, I'm sure, and very similar to yourself, there are low moments that we all have. And I think it's important, and I'll use my wording, it's important to throw yourself a little pity party, because during that time of, self-pity and wallowing in self-pity and all of that, you're uncovering all of these things, you know. So for yourself, you uncovered that you were blaming others, and it was time to stop that and to look in the mirror. So I think without observing those feelings and observing yourself and understanding yourself, you can't move on. We can just go into this self-pity kind of mode. And, you know, the worst leaders, we've all got stories about the worst leadership experiences we've had. Most of us have seen the leaders who, you know, blame and point the finger, and the scapegoat kind of work that happens. That stays with people and it is traumatic. So it's how we overcome that and how we turn it into something positive and a learning experience. And then opportunities come out of that as well, Geoff. You are a different person at the end of that horrible experience.
Yeah, I liked what you said at the start there, Prena. It's important to have that pity party and just deal with it. Get, you know, have a sook about it, but then just pull up the big boy pants or the big girl pants and do what you need to do to move forward.
Exactly. But there is a really important point in stopping to observe what is happening so that we can understand. Therefore, we can then move on from it. Otherwise, it just stays internalized in us and then we explode in the future in awful ways. Geoff, were there any significant risks or unconventional approaches that you've taken in your career that have led you to where you are now?
Well, probably looking for growth opportunities that are not just within your own organisation. As I said, I've just worked out it's so important for me to see things that just aren't blue all the time and things like that. So I look for those opportunities, and I tell my people that, you know, you got to do that. Don't rely. You are your professional development officer, not the agency.
Yes.
And so if you want to grow, then it's down to you. I think. Look, I think one of the best things I've ever done is when I came back from New South Wales. I worked at the police academy and I was involved in the professional development area, and there was a mentor program there with the in the learning precinct down at Joondalup with the university and the local government and the TAFE and the like, and I like that because it paired someone with another different organisation. So I like that. I did it that 1 year, and so when I came down to the southwest, we commenced a mentor program down here. So I went and approached 5 organisations: police, DFS, EC University, Shire, the City of Bunbury, and Country Health, and we had 36 people that said they wanted to be part of it. So we had 18 pairs of people that were not paired with each other.
Wow.
And it was so successful. And so the following year, I said, it's going to grow. So we went to 11 organisations and 66 people. So we had 33 partners. And we just closed the last program where we had 17 organisations and 150 participants. So and that's going to grow again. But you know, the best thing about that is that I had a bucket load of my people on the program as well, and they got to sit down with someone who wasn't a copper. They were either working in health, local government, a private company, whoever, and it was great. And once again, you step outside your comfort zone, and you learn. And so that is something that I've really taken a lesson out for myself. I learned how important that was. Put it into practice.
Yes.
And it's so easy. Anyone can do that. We've been doing it on the smell of an oily rag. I give them the opportunities to do the leadership 60s and 30s. I started asking, my commissioner at the time came down and spoke to the group. Other companies involved in other organisations grabbed their people, their leaders, and we had a full day leadership program only in February, I think, this year, where we had speakers come in and we filled up the hotel with people that were just like us, like-minded people that just want to grow. It comes back to that, you know, if you build it, they will come. There's so many people out there that are just ready to step over the line of personal and professional development.
Yeah.
and looking for those growth opportunities. And it's so easy to do. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah.
And but that's probably something outside the box that I probably did, and it's just paid dividends.
It's huge. It's different. It's very different. I have a lot of experience with mentoring now through my business as developing people on mentoring programs. So local councils, Edith Cowan University, Murdoch University. There's lots of programs I'm a member of as their trainer, but I have been a lucky recipient of a mentoring program when I was on the program years ago, and the Joondalup Learning Precinct program I was a member of. And shout out to someone you know and I know, I was paired with the head of the Police Learning Academy, an amazing person called Mr. Alan Morton, who I love.
Yeah,
So he was my mentor years ago, probably around 2013, Geoff, and I have clung on to him since. You know, we've had this informal relationship throughout, and the power of mentoring, I can attest to being one of the most things that's truly helped me with development, Geoff. And I'm happy to share the kind of stuff that I talk to Alan with, you know, when we do catch up. As I've been starting my business, it's about Alan, I'm working in a more male-dominated industry, so I bring my female perspective to the conversation. You know, how do I deal with blokes? Blokes at that helm of their career, that kind of stuff. I talk about fear, and this is the next level of me. But I'm really scared, Alan. What's this about? So I'll bring all sorts of stuff to Alan, and it is the best. But then, Geoff, the other wonderful thing about this is reverse mentoring. And I won't disclose what Alan brings, but guaranteed, Alan's bringing stuff to the conversation as well.
yeah.
Geoff, that program finished yonks ago, but we're still keeping in touch. So the power of such programs are immense to organizations. They don't cost much, not really, but the effect that you have on people beyond, this current year, beyond this job even, it's immense. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Morton is a very highly ranked officer in this organisation, and you did really well to get him as a mentor. He's highly respected. But that's the beauty about those opportunities that come up. When they do, you don't always know who you're going to get. But if you don't have to be on a program to have a mentor or be a mentee or whatever. You can actually reach out, and people, particularly people in higher levels, they enjoy it when people actually make contact and actually want to pick their brains or have coffee conversations or even become a mentor for them. So it's just about, as I said, people are either at the line ready to step over and do something, or they're just a step back, or they just need a big shove in the back. And that's, yeah, I love the programs that we've been doing, and like that, it just pays dividends. We've had so many people on our programs that have progressed through either new opportunities in the organisation they're in or outside. We've had so many people that have reported so much benefits and growth, and it's it's out there. If, as I said, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And if it isn't built, step up and go and look for it. And that's how you grow. That's how you learn, and it pays dividends every time.
Beautiful. That's a gorgeous mentality, Geoff. If you don't ask, you don't get. That's it, right?
Exactly.
Now, Geoff, this podcast is called Ways to Change Your Workplace. I have one final and very important question for you.
Yeah.
Geoff Stewart, if I was to hand you a magic wand, what is one way that you would change the way of the workplace?
I would wave it over and stop all the harmful traits that are either by individuals or have been created by the team. That's what, it's 2023, and we've still we still have problems in the workplace. We still talk about bullying. We still talk about sexual harassment, sexual intimidation. We talk about people that are just leaving and looking for other opportunities because of the way the workplace is. You know, one of the things that I like, I use this guy called Peter Drucker, who's
Yes.
he's now passed away. He'd be over 100 now, old Pete. But I like using his quotes, and one of the best ones I like is about leaders don't need to know what to do, leaders need to know what to stop. And that's in terms of themselves. And once again, I replace leader with team members, because everyone's got in the game. Any workplace, the culture that exists there is the culture that they tolerate. Now, if they tolerate bad behaviour and the like, what are they doing about it? So it's not, yes, the leader has probably more skin in the game around it, but everyone owns it. So if I could wave a magic wand, it's about doing that. You know, in the absence of waving a magic wand, it's about having those hard conversations with people and the like and that. But I think I'd like to just get people to understand we've grown. We know all our technical stuff, or you're going to learn the technical stuff wherever you work. That's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it comes back to that. I use this thing called be, know, do, and I think you might have touched on before about being your true self. When I deliver sessions on leadership, I call it be, because be, know, do is a US military term, if anyone Googles it, but the know is the easy stuff. It's the technical stuff, our policy, our procedures, our legislation, our and the like. We know that, or we'll learn it. And the do is a practical application. Simple again. The hardest thing of all is the be, and that's being true to yourself. That's being true to yourself. And I tell everyone that when I induct people, I say to them, our organisational values are really important. I want you to remember those. But in terms of that, Prena, we have values like every other company has values, but we still have people that fall over and do silly things, do bad things, do unlawful things sometimes. But why? We have these values. Why aren't they sticking to it? And it comes down to people aren't being true to themselves and living their personal values. So personal values to me are so much more important than organisational values, because if you are true to yourself, do a bit of GDP, good, decent person, good, decent people, then you'll tick off the organisational values. So that's what we need to do. People need to, as I said, leaders and team members don't need to know what to do. They just need to know what to stop doing. And it's those harmful traits. And so if I could do it with a wand without doing all that discussion, that'd be great. But that's what's really important to me.
Beautiful. Geoff, it reminds me of a speech that I gave for International Women's Day this year. And I really talked about the fact that sexual harassment, female homicides, they are very prevalent in our society. And without people talking about it, without people taking action, the last statement I left everyone with is, you are what you tolerate.
Yeah.
So exactly what you're saying. Geoff, I could speak with you forever and forever. I cannot thank you enough for this conversation and your time today. To be continued potentially, and I'll see you tomorrow in your chat as well, Geoff.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I've really enjoyed it, Prena. I hope my voice wasn't too bad. I'm just getting over the cold at the moment, but no, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This is what I get, and I said before, I learn from these things, and the things that you've said today, I've taken a note of, and whatever. That's what it's about. So everyone, get out there and learn. Leaders don't stop learning, and it'll lead to success.
Perfect and simple. Thank you so much, Geoff.